Hello everyone. I hope you're all doing very, very well tonight. We made it to the end of the week. Congrats. I hope you're able to relax. I know some people aren't. I know some people often have to work long into Friday night or sometimes even during the weekend. Although I hope you get paid quite well for doing that. But it can be rough for those people. So I hope that even if you are one of those, you're able to chill out and relax with me. My week has been quite busy. Just coming to the end of something in the next week or two, and it's definitely picking up. And I've been told that I've been let known that it's going to get even busier. Yeah, that's not great. Although I will say, there's a silver lining this month, because this month I got like a wage increase. You know, even I, half human, half two a day, who mainly lives in the woods. Even I have to buy food and things. Wagey, yeah, I'm a wagey cagey boy. Technically, it's a salagy. Salary? I don't know. But hello, Toede, how you doing? How's my favorite goblin? You are fat and gay. I know how much you train, Toede. That's not true at all. You're a lean, mean fighting machine. Actually, no, you're more of a lean, mean drawing machine. And a lean, mean lewd machine. How am I? I'm doing okay. I'm a little bit sore. I don't know what happened the past couple of days, or yesterday. I was doing legs, so I was doing squatting and stuff. And I think maybe I went down too fast on one side of my knee. Maybe I was just off center or something. I think that's what it could have been. And I twisted my back a little bit, and it was quite sore. It was quite sore this morning as well as last night. It's definitely better, but it's just kind of like if I turn my body, I do get a bit of pain. Lucky you haven't worked out for almost a month because the winter is so cold. It is fun. If you go out after the gym, you might get sick. That sucks. I know what you're on about when it gets like that, when it's like, it's freezing cold, especially if you're doing like running or cardio or anything, and you're really sweating. That's when you get sick. I often had that happen during the winter time. And it's horrible as well then, if you're like really sweaty, you don't want to put on a jumper or a jacket. You don't want to put on a coat, because everything feels so sticky and wet and ugh. And then at the same time, it's like you don't want to ruin your jacket or whatever you're wearing, because it might be nice. Now I actually have a specific jacket that I wear for the gym, for those type of things, or if it's just cold out. But even still, it's just like it's horrible putting it on. But yeah, it's kind of put me. I didn't even go walking today. I was quite sore, but it is feeling a little bit better. I took a few remedy stuff to try and ease the pain a little bit. Hopefully by tomorrow. To be honest, I've actually had this area. This area has often been an issue for me. Going back a couple of years ago, when I was doing deadlifts, and I remember I wasn't even doing it that heavy. I think it was about 80 kg, and I felt my kind of lats, I guess, or like the side of my back, the middle sides of my back pull. Like I felt them lengthen and pull, and it was horrible. And then it was very painful. 80 kg. Well, I suppose I was pulling up around. I think I was close to 3 plates at that point. Yeah, no, I think I was pulling 3 plates. Yeah, I was. But you know, it was very not the best 3 plates. And I wouldn't do it too often. I probably would, I wouldn't do 1 rep maxes or even 2. I try and keep it to the 5, but something just went in my back. My mind was elsewhere. I know exactly when it happened as well. It was the week before everything shut down. But that left me quite sore, and I think ever since then that area of my back has been kind of a weak point. I think what happens as well is that I'm wary to get back to deadlifts. I think what I need to do is I need to maybe go to a physio to get them to have a look at it and just kind of have a talk about it, and maybe do more deadlifts, because I think what's happening is when I'm doing squatting and I can't squat that heavy anymore. I still do decent weight, but I think with my shoulder injury and that back area, I think like it's just a bit weak, and I have to be a lot more careful and a lot slower. Damn, yeah, it's pretty lame. It's pretty lame. He turned into grandpa already. You like history. You are here for this, Alpin. Well, actually, we're currently talking about lifting. I twisted my back a little bit yesterday, so it's a little bit sore. But I was just talking about how I think what I need to do is when this heals up, I need to go back to deadlifts proper. You thought you felt a disturbance, yeah? You got that noise. It's gym data, yeah. The big strong gym man. His veins are pure protein. If a vampire was to drink from him, he would turn a hench. He'd become a vampire data. But yeah, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to deadlifting a little bit. Try to build up the strength in that region, and also maybe incorporate a bit more rotation based exercises, like what are they called again? I can't remember. When you hold the cable and you just twist sideways, something like that. Anyway, it's your speciality. Talking about weightlifting, and he appeared like a spell. Yeah, if you turn off all the lights in your local gym, and you look at the mirror, and you have to be holding 50 kg dumbbells in each hand, and you say Alpin Allbench 5 times, he appears behind you. This also happens if you're failing a squat in the dark. You'll feel the warm hands of his wrap around your chest, and he'll help you lift it. But I hope you're doing well. Alpin. Sounds like an awesome idea, Ruadh. I'm a really big fan of taking an injury, slowly working it with the not painful range to build it back up. Yeah, I was saying before, it's an area that I've had a lot of issues with before, going back a couple of years ago, and it just keeps happening. Every couple of months, every I'd say 5-6 months, it just comes back a little bit, and it's sore. That's how a lot of competition lifters get through injuries. Like, I don't know, maybe I think as well because I've lifted heavier in the squat, I feel like I should be able to do this grand, and maybe that's kind of making me kind of push a bit too hard. I think that mentality of like, I've lifted this before. I can do 2 plates, not a bother. But then I go up to 105 or something, and it's just maybe I'm going at it a bit too fast. I just come down a bit too quickly or something. Maybe I should try not going as deep. Even though I love ass to grass squats. Get that deep squat in. Are you form checking? That's what I think I'm gonna do next time I go to the gym. I'm gonna record myself and see how my form is looking, because maybe there is something that's going on there. Maybe it could be that maybe I'm twisting a little bit, or maybe I'm not. I don't know. Maybe one of my knees is coming in a little bit more, and it's making my something anyway. If I had to describe the injury, Alpin, basically it's middle back, almost kind of where the ribs of your back kind of stop, and it's just like the muscles there sore if I twist my back, like I'm turning around. You have a really good idea of what's happening? Shoot, Alpin, shoot, give me that professional advice. It just sucks because 3 plates used to be not easy at all. But I used to be capable of doing it, and then stuff went down. He's a wizard. You can give him anything, and he knows exactly what to do. And I will say, by the way, we will be doing a little bit of reading about history, particularly about medieval Ireland. Within the, I think this part of the book is going to look at the 11th to, or say the 12th to the 16th century, so 1100s to 1500s. And really around the end of the 12th century is when Britain makes their appearance on the scene. Without seeing it, you'd say 50-50. It's either one hip being higher than the other, or on ass to grass, many people have their pelvic area tucked into like a shrimp posture at the very bottom. You do 3 plates and you were so happy when you hit two plates, you feel so tiny. I'm mainly at about one. Like if I was to push, I'd be pushing up to about, I think, 2 months ago. Yeah, about a month and a half ago, I was up around 110 for about 5. And I was just doing 100 kg. I didn't feel the best yesterday, but like I didn't feel bad enough that I was like, oh no, I can't train. I was just like, this is kind of a session where I'm not going to push myself too hard. And then this happened. I think I should just listen to my body even more. But tucking, So it's sort of like the I can't remember what that's called, but yeah, like the tucking. I think maybe that could be happening. I'd have to check my form to make sure, but you might be right, Alpin. And that might be putting more pressure then on the middle of my back as it takes that weight. And I'm kind of like, yeah, because even if I pelvic tilt, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, because even if I kind of go into like that shrimp position, I can feel the pain there a little bit. But like the thing is that I keep a nice tight grip on the bar. I keep my chest up, my shoulders back, and I keep everything nice and tight. And I was breathing, so I don't know. I'll have to do a full check, I suppose, full check. But I might even get my I think I said it to you before, Alpin. I might get my grandfather to take a look at it next time he's in the gym with me. And hello, Mr. Howru, Mr. Howru, how you doing? Howru doing? And thank you so much for the follow. You're actually the 250th follower. 250th follower. Now, technically, the follower before you no longer exists. They were a bot follower, and I'm pretty sure they've been banned because they're now unknown user on my activity feed. But you're still the 250th. You're still the 250th, which is a really cool number to hit. I'm going to be honest. It's a quarter of 1,000. I feel like that's more of a, like, I feel like it goes like 100, 250, and then like 500. Like it goes up in closeness to, or fractions of 1,000. Nice fractions. But that's cool. And thank you to Eddie. Where's my bottle of water? Oh, that was probably a little bit loud. I swear carrying around that water bottle is like a weight in itself. Ugh. But yeah, I hope you guys have been having a nice week. And that your weekend goes lovely. I think now I'm going to get into the book reading. So when we last left off, we left behind the 10th century, the 11th century, and now we're moving into late medieval Ireland, which is sort of a period where there's some considerations that the early hundreds of the kind of early Middle Ages to Middle Ages, which I know sounds weird, of Ireland was sort of its heyday, was sort of its golden age. And obviously, of course, the English arrive in this time period, and a lot of the history is the potato period. Not necessarily. I don't think the potato was around at this point. But I guess if you were to call it a golden period, you could call it the golden potato, maybe. But that was a period where there was a lot going on. The reputation of Ireland as a place of scholarship was at an all-time high. and it's beginning to consolidate. It's going through much of what the other places are going to, but the local or the major provinces just aren't able to really get as strong as a hold as Brian Boru did before the Battle of Kinsale, where he died. And it was never able to really form into a single political entity, much like the Kingdom of England. It was close to. I'd say another decade or two, but then the English come on the scene. But I'm sure we'll get into that in a while. The first chapter that we're going to be looking at is landscape and economy. Very exciting stuff, no doubt. From 1100 to 1500 AD. There was a general trend in Europe from the 10th to the 13th centuries towards increased agricultural productivity and population growth. This promoted a shift towards arable farming, more international trade, the colonization of new lands, and the greater centralization of wealth and power into the hands of elite, who reaped the benefits from a buoyant economy. Across Europe, these economic changes are linked to urbanization and the development of more nucleated settlements. This phenomenon in Ireland varied greatly from region to region. It was more evident in the richer agricultural lands in the south and the Midlands that would be conquered and colonized by the English in the years 1170 to 1250 AD. This region, Dublin and the surrounding regions, would eventually become known as the Pale. And if you guys have ever heard the term beyond the Pale, that actually comes from Ireland. That comes from the concept of that beyond the Pale is where the barbarian, the Fenians, the dangerous Irish roam. By the late 13th century, the boom years of the economic growth were ending. A series of demographic crises in the 14th century led to the abandonment of intensive cash crop production in marginal areas and the decline of the English colony. In Gaelic-held areas of Western and Northern Ireland, changes in land ownership and production had been less radical. These areas, which had less economic strength in the 12th and 13th centuries, seemed to possess greater resilience during the famines, plagues and wars of the 14th and 15th centuries. You never heard of it? It's sort of used in a sense of like, if one was to do something that is socially frowned upon, or kind of like most people would not approve of, it's said to be beyond the pale. Hello, Clever. Welcome in. Thank you for joining us. I hope you're having a nice Friday and going to have a nice weekend. We're reading about Ireland. Had your back recovered? It's still sore. But it's definitely better than it was. Do I have that emote? Yeah, if you guys would spam head pat emote at me for a little bit, I probably would feel totally better. Climate. The late 13th and early 14th century witnessed a crisis. The fertility of agricultural land was in decline due to overuse. Thank you, Clever. Overuse. More land was cleared to compensate, and the loss of forest cover may have contributed to declining climatic and environmental conditions. A series of wet summers damaged crops and aggravated the spread of disease in livestock. In the year 1315 to 17, a great famine raged across swaths of Europe, northern Europe. Its impact in Ireland is recorded in chronicles including the Annals of Connacht, where records in 1315, quote, many afflictions in all parts of Ireland, very many deaths, famine and many strange diseases, murders, and intolerable storms as well. Thank you, Toede. The early to mid-14th century was a period of climatic flux within the northern hemisphere, experienced a decade of severe average temperature reduction. After the mid-14th century, mean annual temperatures appeared to rise in northern Europe until the 1380s, when a decrease followed. The period of cooler mean temperatures lasted during the 15th century and made the practice of growing corn less profitable in Ireland. It was one of the factors that contributed to the decline of the English colony in Ireland and a shift towards pastoral farming. And this would later become something that was very important to the English, basically turning Ireland into a sort of breadbasket for cattle, really, for cattle. And I talked about there about deforestation, that of more land being cleared to grow more crops. In consideration of forested land, Ireland is probably one of the least forested lands in all of Europe, in all of the world, I would say. In terms of its natural forests, what was rain? There's not many forests in the Sahara Desert, but you wouldn't expect a forest in the Sahara Desert. It's very, very small percentage of Ireland has its forests. There is aims to attempt to rewild it. Many areas of forests in Ireland are actually like cache forests. Trees that are good for logging and turning into wood and stuff. It's not natural. It's not the natural vegetation of Ireland. I certainly support aims to rewild Ireland. Settlement patterns. The towns of Ireland boomed in the 12th century. Prominent among these were the old Viking ports. Limerick and Waterford were important sources of profits for the overkings of Munster and Leinster, respectively. Dublin was the biggest settlement in Ireland, and control of the port was key to the ambitions of any leader who sought to dominate all Ireland. This control was hotly contested by Irish overkings in the 12th century, although rulers often delegated authority to a local king of Gaelic Scandinavian culture, who would be more acceptable to the inhabitants of the port. Economic development was not confined to the coast, however. Important ecclesiastical and regional centres continued to grow and develop an urban character. Records are sufficient to indicate that Armagh, Downpatrick, Kells, Kildare, Cashel and Clonmacnoise functioned as towns in the early 12th centuries. Or early 12th century. What do I have here? I do have that. Okay, excellent. I believe, is this the one that is... This at least will allow people to look a little bit at some of the place names. I'll see if I can make that a little bit bigger. Or no, I think that's big enough, yeah. So this is kind of the region of Ireland around the 1100s. Thanks, love you, maths. So the main groups, kind of the overkings, Northern New Nail, Argala, Breffin, Mead. And Mead is sort of the southern New Nail as well, but a lot of these are branches. So example, the Caneal Conail, the Caneal Noan are branches of the Northern New Nail. And then same down here in Desmumu, the main family are the Uabrian, the family of descendants of Brian Boru. It used to be controlled mainly by the Eganocht, who controlled vast swaths of land, but they eventually kind of gave way to the Dalkaish, from which the Brian family emerges. Or Brian dynasty, I suppose I should say. Towns increasingly became centres of power and residence of provincial rulers. Overkings invested patronage in political and ecclesiastical centres, and sought to impose greater controls over routeways across the landscape. A good case study of this phenomenon is Athlone, a strategically significant fording point to the river on the River Shannon between Meath and Connacht. A wooden bridge was built here in 1120, followed by a castle, or cashel, in 1129, under the patronage of Tordelbach Ua Cohor, King of Connacht. A new bridge was built in 1140 to secure the spiritual as well as temporal influence of Connacht overkings at this important river crossing. The Cluniac Priory of St. Peter and Paul was founded in the decades that followed. The term Castlean was first used to describe a small number of fortresses in the city in the early 12th century, mainly in Connacht. These may have been earth and timber castles, mottes, in European style. Motte-like structures dating from the early 12th century have been studied at Ballasloe, County Galway, and Donate, County Down. So I'm just going to see if they have that region. No, it looks like they mainly just have the names of places. Up by the River Shannon, do they have Athlone? You don't know what profane means, but you feel insulted by reading it, or Brefna. Wait, how would you pronounce Brefna? Brefna, I would probably pronounce it actually. These names sound like we go out on a weekend and we end up rambling and making up words, and we take a map and use said word to put in the map. This is just a fantasy map. It really is just a fantasy map. Like I'm gonna write out the name of the guy that I read there. I'm gonna write that out for you guys to see what type of names I have to deal with. A lot of this is Middle Irish, so it's not exactly. Okay, yeah, you guys can see that. Okay, so it is spelt that I have to read and try and figure out how to pronounce nice and quickly. Tordelbach. Cahur. That is the name of an overking of Connacht in the 12th century. I need to deal with this. So if there's ever a name that's particularly difficult for me to pronounce, I will write it up for you guys so you guys can see what I'm dealing with. Oh wait, you guys can't even see it. Hang on. There we go. That gives you guys an idea of what I'm dealing with. And Middle Irish has some different pronunciation stuff to Modern Irish, I suppose. So yeah, we'll see what comes around there. If there's any particularly good ones, I'll show you. Centralization of power was fostered through the development of nucleated settlements and through the spatial organization of lands into units of taxation, local government, and military levies. Before the English invasion, Ireland had been divided into a uniform system of trichet Keat, of which around 185 have been identified. These units were then utilised by the English, who renamed them Cantreads, following the Welsh name Cantref. Smaller units that were established in pre-conquest Ireland were called Baile, Beatig, and Baile these days means town in Irish. So some places would be Baile Ahaclia, which usually indicated an estate belonging to a kin group whose average size was around 2,000 acres, but that their extent varied greatly. These units often coincided with later parochial and manorial divisions. Hi Woody, thank you for the alert. The church also promoted a system of more centralized territorial organization. A new diocesan framework was established in 1152 at the Synod of Kells Mellifont that divided Ireland into 4 archdioceses and 38 dioceses. A system of parochial organization gradually developed thereafter. At the eve of the English invasion, Ireland possessed a system of territorial organization similar to its English neighbours. Power was less unified than in the neighbouring Kingdom of England, but England was unusual in its degree of centralization. The economic expansion of Europe may provide something of a longue durée explanation for Ireland's partial conquest and settlement by a more populous and powerful neighbour after 1169. However, English intervention was motivated by short-term political goals as well as any long-term economic cause. The fiscal potential of Ireland was a key factor in drawing colonists to Ireland. In 1171, Henry II confiscated the main centres of wealth in Ireland, Dublin, Wexford, and Waterford. The richest agricultural lands in eastern and southern Ireland were then seized by colonists in the last decades of the 12th century. English conquest and settlement proceeded more gradually into more fertile areas in the north and west. The settlers prompted population growth and the development of old and new centres of lordship that would leave a long-term imprint on the Irish landscape. Dublin became the centre of English power in Ireland, and it grew rapidly as a political centre and a hub of international trade. In the mid-13th century, realistic estimates of its population ranged between 10,000 and 35,000. Other Viking Age port towns along the south and east coast continued to flourish in the 12th and 13th century. New ports were also founded. These included Drogheda in the east, established by Hugh de Lacy in the 1180s, and New Ross in the south, founded by William Marshall around 1200. Carrickfergus, Coleraine, Dungarvan, Dundalk, Galway, Sligo and Youghal also owed their development as towns to English settlers. Along the major rivers that led inland from these ports, a network of inland towns was established for the acquisition and distribution of goods transshipped to and from the coast. These local centres of administration provided goods and services through craftsmen, clerics, merchants, and other workers to their regions. Like their contemporary European counterparts, the new towns were often endowed with charters defended by castles and demarcated by ditches and banks or walls. Their sites were often determined by pre-existing Gaelic patterns of settlement. For example, Kilkenny, which is it on this map? It isn't. Nah, it's fine. Kilkenny became an important seat for the MacGilla Fádric, kings of Ossory, or Fádric. The Anglo-Welsh adventurer Strongbow took over the settlement, and the town was developed by William Marshall, who granted its charter in 1207. Kilkenny, what an odd name. It's Kilkenny. Strongbow. Yep, Strongbow. Strongbow was the name of he wasn't even financed by the English king. He was a sort of an adventurer sorts who would invade Ireland. He was financed by what was the guy's name? The Jew of Gloucester, or however you pronounce those weird English towns. Gloucester, maybe. He couldn't get funding by the English king, so he was. They'll probably talk about it in this book, or maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to say. Probably when it gets into political developments, it will. But yeah, he plays very very important. John of Gaunt. Bro got funding just to go invade shit for fun. Yeah, I mean that's what a lot of people did. A lot of people did that. But what happens? I can't remember if that's Strongbow or not. But essentially, what happens is one of the kings of one of the dynasties on the east coast of Ireland get overthrown, and they run to the English throne to ask for help, and that's what gives them kind of a cause belly to invade into Ireland and assist this individual. And then over time, they slowly expand more and more. And there's constant invasions for a long time. I mean, it takes time for the English to really gain a foothold, but over time it does just happen. A bit of a sore point. Where were we? Oh yeah. In addition to developing towns of regional significance, many small boroughs were created by English lords in a bid to generate wealth and settlers. Burgess status offered freedom from some burdens of lordship, providing an incentive for English and Welsh migrants to relocate to Ireland. There were 250 or more medieval boroughs in Ireland, but many lacked sufficient population to be classified as towns by modern geographers. Nor were they purely colonial enclaves. Gaelic Irish remained in the majority on most English estates, especially beyond the intensely colonised areas of the south and east coast. To take an example, an extent survives from the manor of Cloncurry, County Kildare, in 1304, which lists 191 tenants of non-Gaelic identity, 112 burgesses and 79 others, and 111 Gaelic Irish tenants, most of whom were of lower ranks. Betas or cotters. Men will invade foreign nations instead of going to therapy. So real, Alphen, Toede, that you guys want to round up a little war band and go invade, I don't know, go take over some, like, island somewhere. What's that island with that, like, really, that group of people let's invade England back? I would absolutely be down for that, Alphen. I would absolutely be down for it. We can go say hi to Son and Bonnie and Digby. And let's not talk about some of the other things, but yes, I would be down for that. I want to see the establishment of a Gaelic empire across Europe. Well, at least across Ireland and the UK. So Wales, Scotland, Cornwall. I was joking about invading them earlier. I've met a lot of nice people from there. Some, some I've met are not so nice. It's payback time. Although first we'll have to get them out of Ireland. And I will say, I don't, normal random English people, I don't mind at all. They're often very lovely to chat to. I love Bonnie. I love Son and Digby. They're lovely. The political regime of England, I do see as political enemies. I will say that until Northern Ireland is returned. And that's not like some let's meme about the English. That is like straight up, just general my feeling. Not for payback, just for getting them. Like a Viking, but American. American Vikings would be terrifying because they're not going to roll up and jump out of the boats with their swords and axes and shields. They're going to just firebomb you from 20 miles away with their warships. Imagine you had independent. Imagine you guys had. They're called Midwest football players. Oh yeah, those massive guys who are all 6'5" and 300 pounds and are incredibly athletic. Those guys would be pretty scary. Or version of Raiders. Yeah, I can imagine them going around and being like, your money or your life. Probably some of the more crazy ones will probably do the Mountain Blade Warband. I will drink from your skull. But probably in like a Midwest accent, whatever that American accent is. I don't know. All I know is Texan. That's about it. And Californian, the Valley Girl, and just a general American accent. Where were we? Ah, yes. These numbers represent heads of households, and so the total population can be calculated to be more than 1,000 people. The extent provides a snapshot of a community in decline, describing an abandoned motte and dilapidated estate buildings. The boom years of manorial settlement between 1170 and 1250 were over. By the late 13th century, economic stagnation and warfare were taking their toll on many boroughs. In 1238, David MacKellig Uagilla Patrick, Bishop of Cloyne, founded a borough at Kilmaheen, County Cork. In 1341, it boasted 30 burgesses, mostly of English origin, but it was abandoned after the 1380s. Some boroughs never attracted enough settlers to have long-term viability, while those of marginal lands were more vulnerable to the effects of climatic decline or soil exhaustion. In the 13th century, more isolated moated farm sites were built in English-held areas, except in the northeast, which may hint at a departure from nucleated rural settlements. The burdens of royal English taxation had encouraged exploitation of the resources of Ireland, but with little reinvestment of wealth into the colony. With this economic drain, the smaller boroughs of the colony were ill-equipped to weather the ravages of famine, plague, and warfare of the 13th century, or 14th. You want to dress up as Gallogloss and say the Irish sent you? I was actually going to say, so this lack of development in Ireland, it actually plays a big issue in later attempts to rebel against the English crown, particularly in the 9 Years' War of the great Hugh O'Neill, the last kind of great rebellion of the Irish nobility before the flight of the earls. And one of the issues that he constantly found was the acquisition of black powder and firearms. There simply wasn't a strong industry in Ireland for that. It was mainly kept as a farming and a pastoral area. Now he did eventually, before the war really broke out, he began his own development, and it became a very important area up in the north. But a lot of his support came from Scotland as well, and often the Galloglass, which were originally anyway Scottish mercenaries of kind of a Gaelic bent, were very important. But the great Hugh O'Neill ends up kind of modernizing the Irish armies, his armies anyway. But that's another book and another story. The Great Famine and the Black Death of the 14th century caused a significant drop in population, particularly in the south and east of the country. These crises prompted significant levels of migration from the English colony to Western England. Up to 40% of the population of the English colony was lost. This corresponded with the Gaelic takeover of areas of land in Munster, Connacht and Ulster, which had previously been under English lordship. References to unutilized lands within the English lordship became more common in the 14th century. An example is the manor of Callan in County Kilkenny, which in 1348 to 49 had 95 out of 548 acres lying tenantless. In the following year, the area of vacant lands had risen to 302 acres, or 302 acres. Rapid readjustment in landholding followed, for in 1352 the area of vacant holdings in Callan had declined to 26 acres, but the manorial revenues continued to fall. This either suggests the rents dropped significantly to attract tenants, or that holdings were enlarged to prevent land going to waste. The loss of English tenants improved the position of the Gaelic Irish in English-held areas, as labour shortages meant they could hold land on better terms. As the English colony lost ground, power became decentralised. Some of the great castles built to symbolise English power, including Trim, fell into disuse, and more modest tower houses were built. Roughly 1/3 of the landmass of Ireland had never been conquered by the English. Most of these areas in western Ulster, Connacht and the southwest Munster comprised poorer lands, where the limited potential for economic gain through conquest was outweighed by the difficulty of wresting lands from Gaelic control. Differences emerged between the cultural landscapes of the English lordships and the Gaelic areas, as the former were characterised by more nuclear settlement than the latter. These distinctions were driven in part by economic variance, as poorer lands necessitated a more dispersed settlement pattern that provided access to a range of resources. Political and social differences also played their part. English lords promoted nucleation in areas under their control, but similar developments in Gaelic-held areas were initially stunted or reversed by English colonization. It did not serve the interests of Gaelic lords to have a fixed centre of lordship that would be vulnerable to attack. Only ecclesiastical centres bucked this trend as centres for collecting tithes, for trade and craftsmen, and as providers of goods and services for clerics, high-status visitors and pilgrims. One of the more successful Gaelic episcopal seats was on the south coast, or Rosscarbery, County Cork, which by 1517 had a walled town with 2 gates and nearly 200 houses. As more land in Ireland fell into Gaelic control in the 14th century, there was a modest shift towards more nucleated settlement. Cavan, Longford and Granard, County Longford, were among the sites developed as markets in the 15th century. There was also significant Gaelic population to English-held towns in the 15th century, as witnessed by the surnames of burgesses. Many of the population in Gaelic-held areas lived in scattered farmsteads or small house clusters. These dwellings often had a temporary character. Permanent dwellings may have been eschewed for the political and economic reasons mentioned earlier, but also as a consequence of Gaelic landholding practices. Clan lands were divided into shares among male heirs and frequently redistributed, on the death of an heir or more often according to local customs, meaning giving little reason to invest labour in substantial buildings. Transhumance, or bullying, was also a feature of rural life in many areas that promoted the construction of seasonal dwellings. In the early 13th century, the temporary dwellings of the Gaelic elite were scorned by the English Cistercian abbot Stephen of Lexington as, quote, little huts of wattle such as burghs are accustomed to build. These wattle structures might nevertheless be placed in grand settings. During the Middle Ages, older sites of lordship, large ring forts and crannogs were occupied or reoccupied. This had a symbolic as well as defensive function, for those sites represented the historic legitimacy of local Gaelic rule. The building of the elite also developed a more permanent character towards the end of the Middle Ages. It seems like the English were harrying them, so they almost had to have kind of temporary developments. From around 1300, a poetic eulogy survives describing the large hall of Aidh Ua Corhur of Clonfree, County Roscommon. Its English-style roof supports are singled out for praise. In the late 14th century, stone-built tower houses became popular among both the Gaelic and English elite. Around 7,000 of these were constructed in Ireland, although most may date to the 16th century. They cluster in the south of Ireland and in coastal regions, but are sparse in central Ulster and the North Midlands. Let me take a quick drink. While tower houses often stand as isolated structures in Irish landscape today, and you often see them driving and heading around the island, you'll see these large tower houses. Most were accompanied by bonds or enclosures and a group of buildings that might include a hall for feasting, homes for retainers, stables, and workshops. The tower houses of Ireland represent a fusion of Gaelic and English culture that resulted from 2 centuries of close contact and a shift in power and wealth out of English governmental control. Farming and natural resources. Farming and the exploitation of natural resources remained the mainstay of the Irish economy throughout the Middle Ages. What was not immediately consumed by producers was used to pay taxes and tributes, traded for goods or services invested in supporting the family, or stored. In the poem The Circuit of Ireland by Muirchertach MacNeill, that has been dated between 1157 and 66, the stores of Dublin are said to comprise bacon, of fine wheat, joints of meat and fine cheese. In the periods from the 11th century to the mid-13th century, there is evidence of agricultural intensification in the fertile lands of Ireland, particularly in the east and south, where denser populations and access to overseas trading routes provided a ready market for surplus crops. The more widespread cultivation of bread wheats and pulses probably reflects not only the demands of a growing population, but also the desires of landowners to maximize profit or meet the growing tax burdens imposed by centralizing governments. At the end of the 12th century, English colonization led to a wholesale redistribution of land between the Crown, the Church, and tenants-in-chief, while more than 1/3 of the island remained in the possession of the Gaelic Irish. Ireland's richest lands were seized by colonists with the desire to generate a large surplus of cash crops to export. To achieve this surplus, additional land was brought under the plough, and improved agricultural methods were introduced. New technologies, including using the coulter to plough and a team of oxen, and the scythe for haymaking on a large scale. There were also greater use of corn-drying kilns and water mills. Wheat, barley, and rye had a bigger role in the English diet, in bread, stews, pottages, and ale, compared to the greater dependence on oat and dairy products in the Gaelic economy. And this goes back hundreds of years. Your level of wealth in Gaelic society was often determined by the number of cows or cattle that you owned. Large quantities of grains were also grown for export in the 13th century, which lined the pockets of landowners and government. For example, in 1224, the mayor of London imported 1,000 crannocks, quarters of wheat from Ireland. The colonization of Ireland proved to be a profitable enterprise in the first century after its inception. While these changes have been dubbed an agricultural revolution, it could be argued that the English capitalized upon and developed existing trends in Irish farming. Economically, the land in Gaelic lands was usually less suited to cash crop cultivation, but where soil fertility and access to markets allowed, similar practice were adopted. In the classic model of an Anglo-Norman manor demesne, lands were farmed for the lord and remaining portions of land were let to the tenants. An open field system was operated whereby farmland was divided into 2 or 3 sectors in which there was a rotation of arable crops, usually wheat or rye and oats. And a fallow period, and that's for fallow. Oh, thank you, Toede, for the hydrate. Fallow typically means to leave one of your fields without any crops. And the reason why you would do that is you would allow the nutrients in the soil to build back up. And eventually this is something, crop rotation will become a big thing where you would say you have certain crops, you have 4 fields and you have certain crops that take certain nutrients from the soil. Now, of course, this would later become much more in depth when these things were actually kind of figured out on a scientific basis. But you might grow wheat in one field, then the next year you would grow wheat in the next field, and you would grow wheat in the next field the year after, and you'd grow something else in the other fields, and then you would always leave one fallow to allow it to replenish its own stocks, its natural stocks of nutrients. The model of interpretation used in Gaelic areas is that of infield and outfield cultivation, whereby lands closer to dwelling places were intensely farmed and regularly manured with less intensive use of outfield. This model was better suited to wetter areas. However, like all models, there were plenty of divergences from stereotypes. For example, open field cultivation was practiced in parts of Ireland as early as the 8th century, while the use of small enclosed fields is witnessed in both Gaelic and Anglo-Irish areas. Different practices could operate side by side on a single estate. For those at the top of the social scale, beef, pork, and imported luxuries would have been part of an elite pattern of consumption, regardless of ethnicity. Some changes were wrought through English settlement. Rabbit warrens, deer parks, and fish ponds were a feature of the English manorial economy, transplanted to Ireland. Fowl, which was already a feature in the Irish diet, were also consumed in greater quantities, and references to dovecotes occur in English estates. Gaelic farming practices placed much emphasis on cattle rearing. However, Anglo-Irish areas were also heavily dependent on cattle, which may hint at some adaptation to native practices, again cattle being very important. Bovine remains dominate the bone assemblages recovered from Dublin and its hinterlands throughout the Middle Ages. Dairying continued to be significant in late medieval Ireland. Gerald of Wales commented that the weather of Ireland was so mild that the grass grew all year. Characteristically, Gerald got his facts muddled, but cattle were kept alive through the winter months in Ireland through stocks of preserved grass and evergreens, including holly and ivy. Areas of winter grassland were reserved through the practice of bullying, whereby livestock moved to upland pastures in the summer months and returned to the lowlands in winter. This practice was suited to areas where land was insufficient for agriculture, and the mobility of cattle herding also suited social conditions of instability and warfare. While agriculture expansion in the more fertile lands of Ireland sustained population growth in the 13th century, it also made sections of the population, predominantly in English territories, more vulnerable to changing climatic conditions and warfare that could destroy crops. Remember to fit your cows in the wallets. Yeah, your cow wallets. You gotta carry at least. You should be carrying at least 10 cows at all times with you. Do you guys think if I had a child, do you guys think if I did that whole I make him carry a calf as a young boy, and then as he grows up he has to continue to carry the calf, and he gets really buff and strong. I'm gonna do that to my child. My child's gonna be my children are gonna be warriors. They're each gonna have we're gonna bring back the old Gaelic ways, and we're gonna take a little bit from I think that's a Greek story. Take a little bit of that progressive overload with the cows. You like that idea? Yeah, Alvin, you should find a cow to lift. I think in the Greek story it's a bull, so that's even stronger. Yeah, the lads will get bulls, and the girls will also get bulls. I will make Amazonian children, Amazonian daughters, and warlord sons. That's what you really want. Where were we? Oh yes, here we were. The Great Famine and the Black Death of the 14th century caused a significant drop in the population. The twin forces of economic and political change led to the abandonment of cereal cultivation in marginal areas and corresponding growth of pastoralism. Increased emphasis on pastoral farming is reflected to references to nomadic herds or cracht, Irish, carrioch, Carriocht, yeah, Carrioch, Keriocht, from the late 14th century, whose wild and transitory nature caused consternation to the English authorities. A statute of 1430 sought to limit those Irish rimmers, not rimmers, rhymers. It's R-Y-M-E-R, so it was sort of like, I couldn't pronounce it right. Rhymers, outlaws, and felons who grazed their animals on the borders of land under English control. Sheep farming also increased at that time, although with greater significance in English areas for providing cheese, sheepskin, and wool for export and consumption. During the Middle Ages, the later Middle Ages, more white-wool sheep were introduced to Ireland for cloth production. The economic, demographic, and environmental changes of the 14th century encouraged a shift towards livestock rearing and also saw Ireland switch from a prodigious exporter of corn in the 13th century to importing corn for the maintenance of urban populations in the 15th century. The diet of grains, dairy products, and meat was supplanted by cultivation of fruit and vegetables in gardens and through gathering food from the wilds, or was supplemented by cultivation. They also provided mast crops for pigs as well as evergreen for cattle. Woodlands were also exploited for timber and fuel. The pipe roll of Cloyne, most compiled in the 14th century, but with some 15th century records, indicates that a distinction was made between silva, timber woodland, bocus, underwood, and brueria, scrub. Timber was mainly used for large-scale construction. Underwood and coppice were used for post and wattle construction, while scrublands provided a source of fuel. While large areas of Ireland were deforested before the 12th century, there is evidence for an abundant supply of oak in the Dublin region until the 13th century. A trend towards more substantial housing in the 12th century meant greater use of timber for construction. The English invasion led to rapid population growth in urban centres, and the sale of wood for export corresponded with a decline in woodlands. After the Black Death, the pressure on woodland management decreased. Some marginal lands were abandoned, and there is evidence of woodland regeneration in the late 14th century and early 15th. Woodland coverage was nevertheless very, very variable across Ireland. That's a weird word to put before variable. Very variable across Ireland. It was probably less than 10% around Dublin and in the fertile Midland zones, but was extensive in some other areas, including South Wicklow and the Erne Basin. I'm going to look up, because I mentioned it earlier, how much of Ireland is forest? So across Europe, nations average around 35% of forest cover, but in Ireland the figure is just 11%, one of the lowest on the continent. And I want to check something else, is native forest. Yeah, so of that, there's just another thing that says increased to about 10% of the land's surface, but only 1/5 of that, and I was thinking it was around 2%. Only around 2% of the woodland of Ireland is native Irish woodland. Where were we? Oh, yes. In addition to foodstuffs, fuel, and building materials, woodlands provided other products such as moss, used as an absorbent material and often found in latrines, dyestuffs, and animal skins. The libel of Englishy Polkai, I don't know how to pronounce that, composed around 1436 AD, lists goods from Ireland including hurties, hides and other hides or venerii, skins of otter, squirrel, and Irish hare. Oh, okay, I see what's going on here. They're writing in an old English, so it's like hides is spelled Hydes. Irish is spelled IrYsh. Squirrel is spelled Squurel. This guy would fail a spelling test. The river and coasts of Ireland were a welcome source of fish and shellfish. Rivers were also provided watercress, rushes, and fowls. The main river estuaries had salmon fisheries, while eels from the Gaelic interior were purchased by Anglo-Irish merchants. An Irish marine fishing fleet is mentioned in 1217 that helped supply the growing demand for herring and cod. Coastal areas often also provided fertilizer in the form of seaweed and sand. Other natural resources of Ireland included peat, which could be dug from the extensive tracts of bogland as a source of fuel. There is also evidence for quarrying stone and slate in the later Middle Ages to build a new style of houses, churches, and bridges. The exploitation of natural resources was influenced by changes in technology and trade. Crafts and industry. How many pages is this little section? Still a couple more pages to go in this chapter. Yeah, a good bit more. The processing of natural resources was a source of much rural development. In areas of large-scale grain production, corn drying kilns are tested long before the English invasion, while late medieval examples have been found in both rural and urban contexts. In addition to being kept dry, grain had to be milled, although in some Gaelic areas, it was burnt for straw before grinding. Milling was often done laboriously by the use of a rotary quern, and examples have been found on medieval sites. Water mills nevertheless became more common on secular manors and monastic estates. From the 13th century, windmills and horse mills were also in use in Ireland. This points to the intensification of agricultural production, a process that English colonists developed further. In rural areas, brewing, baking, and making butter and cheese were household tasks. The work was often undertaken by women as it was compatible with child rearing. However, large-scale production, as witnessed in or near urban centres, led to a degree of professionalisation, or professionalism. In 1282, the estates of Earl Marshall of Ballysacks, County Kildare, and Old Ross, County Wexford, provided 30 stone of cheese to be sent to Dublin. That is a lot of cheese, oh my god. Urban brewing and baking served the essential day-to-day needs of town dwellers. This activity was undertaken not only at a microscale, but also in specialized breweries and bakehouses. The protection of supplies, measurements, and quality assurance of bread and ale was a frequent topic of municipal regulation that illustrates its importance. Cloth and leather production was also essential in serving the basic needs of the population. Flax was an important crop for linen production in the west of Ireland, as it flourishes in cool, damp environments. Harvested flax was threshed to remove seeds and then soaked in ponds or bogs to separate the fibres from the stalk before it could be spun into yarn. The wearing of fine linen was a symbol of status, while wool was a staple fibre of cloth production. Spinning was considered to be women's work. In medieval Ireland, the distaff was a gender icon. Its images appear variously in medieval manuscript, illuminations in the hands of Eve as the world's first woman, as flying vehicles for witches, or as husband beaters. Wait, what? Let me read that again. Spinning was considered to be women's work. In medieval Europe, the distaff was a gender icon. Its image appears variously in medieval manuscript illuminations in the hands of Eve as the world's first woman, as flying vehicles for witches, or as husband beaters. Okay, I understand now. According to Ramon de Perolos, who visited Ireland in 1397, a coarse woolen cloak was the main attire of the Gaelic Irish. This was known as the brat, even if little else was worn. Well, I'm wearing a Lena, but some people question if I have anything underneath it. You guys don't get to know. In the 13th century, there is evidence that cloth production was increasing, aided by the introduction of new breeds of sheep and water-powered fulling mills in the east of Ireland. Weavers, dryers, tailors, and mercers were among the most common professionals, listed in the Dublin Guild Merchant Roll, that covers the years from around 1190 to 1265. Tanners and skinners are also frequently mentioned in that roll. Tanning, like cloth production, could be carried out as a part-time activity by country dwellers and as a full-time profession in the towns. It principally required access to water and woodland resources. Tanning was often a suburban industry. It was too space-consuming and smelly to be practiced in town centres. but it was ideally situated close to major markets. The abundance of hides produced in Ireland encouraged diversification in the types and qualities of leather produced, and tanners from overseas came to practice their craft in Ireland. Other industries common to both rural and urban areas included ironworks and pottery. Charcoal was needed to generate the heat to smelt iron or fire pottery. Let's get that little person out of here. Get his ass out. Ban those guys. There we go. Which fostered a minor industry in woodland areas through to the 20th century. Iron slag and related metalworking debris appear regularly on medieval rural sites, while furnaces and workshops for metalworkings have been excavated in major towns. As smithing became more common in Ireland, there may have been a corresponding decline in the social status of blacksmiths compared to the law tracts of the 8th century. More than 40 smiths are listed in the Dublin Guild Merchant Roll. Pottery production was fairly limited in Ireland before the English invasion. What was that? That was one of those best viewers on Twitch. Click this link. I swear, bro, you're not gonna get a virus. I swear, bro. Just click my link. Just click the link. I'll give you all the best viewers. Functional coarse pottery, dubbed souterrain ware, was produced in northeast Ireland from the 8th to the 13th centuries. Hand-built cooking wares were also used throughout Leinster in the 12th century, which may reveal foreign cultural influences and practices of food preparation. The last decades of 12th century witnessed a rapid increase in pottery production. A street of potters, Vicus Pottorum, is witnessed in Dublin by 1190, while excavations in Wexford and Waterford have yielded shreds of locally made glazed ware from the early 13th century. The larger boroughs of Ireland were home to a plethora of craftsmen, including masons, carpenters, shoemakers, tailors, combmakers, butchers, bakers, and cooks. An insight into Dublin's economy can be found in the late 12th century Life of St. Patrick by Jocelyn the Furnace. In listing the tribute that Dubliners promised to give to the saint, he reports, quote, "For every merchant ship a cloak suitable for the primate of Armagh, or a cask of honey or wine, or a load of iron or measure of salt. For every tavern a jar of mead or beer. For all workshops, courtyards, and vergates, presents and an appropriate gift of shoes, gloves, knives, combs, and other things of this kind." Archaeology reveals how much the premises of craftsmen and merchants vied for space among the main urban thoroughfares, with their houses, sheds, and outhouses crammed within narrow burgage plots. Commerce and communication. An impression of the goods that could be bought in medieval Irish towns is provided by the Murrig Grant of Fethard in Tipperary, which survives from 1292. It lists the commodities upon which a toll could be taken to pay from the buildings of the town walls. These included horses, oxen, cows, sheep, goats, and hogs, hides, salt, meat, butter, cheese, onions, and garlic, seafish, salmon, lampreys, and herring, skins, wools, hide, linen, and other cloth, salt, wine, honey, soap, alum, and wood, coal, firewood, lead, iron, nails, and horseshoes. The buying and selling of goods and services in medieval Ireland were undertaken directly by providers or indirectly through middlemen. The significance of the service sector in the Irish urban economy is indicated by references in the Dublin Guild Merchant Rolls to vendors, merchants, taverners, servants, stewards, clerks, barbers, painters, water bearers, carriers, and carters. The distribution of the main urban settlements in Ireland was dictated by the transport routes that made trade possible. The larger boroughs were situated along rivers where goods could be shipped to and from wharves and quays. Land communication was also important, and development in infrastructure are witnessed in the 11th and 12th century. Within the English colony, the pre-existing network of roads was developed into royal highways, and new routeways were constructed in the 13th century, laying the foundations of the modern road map of Ireland. The maintenance of maps and bridges was a concern of government, touched upon by parliamentary enactment in the English colony. Routeways in Gaelic areas require further study, but as the English colony, the pre-existing road network was developed. The earliest surviving map of all Ireland that shows medieval roads was drawn in the reign of Henry VIII. Although it is biased towards Eastern Ireland and Dublin, the map is instructive in illustrating some of the major routeways that radiated out from Dublin. The economic growth in Western Irish ports in the 15th century probably stimulated the construction of roads and tracks. Travel had its perils. The Kilkenny Parliament of 1310 heard a report of, quote, those of great lineage who regularly robbed or held to ransom travelling merchants. In 1452, a convoy transporting fish from Athlone, on the borders of the counties Roscommon and Westmeath, to Trim, County Meath, was attacked by one Fergal Og Mac. Fergal Og Mac Oge. How would you pronounce that? Echuan, and a number of merchants and their guard were killed. The extent to which the Anglo-Irish towns depended on trade with the Gaelic Irish has sometimes been underrepresented in the history. The trade across cultural boundaries became more significant in the 14th and 15th centuries as the colonial populations and landholdings shrank. Attempts by the English government to restrict interactions between the Anglo-Irish and Gaels was met with complaints and non-compliance. In 1463, Parliament pragmatically granted an allowance to Cork, Limerick and Youghal to sell every kind of goods apart from artillery to the Gaelic Irish, because the profit of every market, city and town in this land depends principally on the resort, and this is quoted, on the resort of Irish people bringing their merchandise to the said cities and towns. And that mention of artillery is quite an interesting one, because that would become something. That was basically one of the reasons why the great Hugh O'Neill struggled so much to move beyond just control of the countryside, to take the cities. There wasn't any industry and there was very little artillery within Ireland, other than in the cities. So it was very difficult to get it and to get ammo for it. That was one of the things that he constantly came up against and just couldn't overcome. Seaports in the east of the colony appeared to be struggling economically from the late 14th century, but those in the west experienced new growth. In the 15th century, the wills and inventories of Galway and Limerick merchants reveal extensive dealings with Gaelic peoples. Gaelic merchant families were also able to re-establish themselves in prominent positions within chartered towns. For example, the Sextons, the U Shasnain, in Limerick, and the Roynanes, the U Ronain, in Cork and Kinsale. The use of coin in Ireland predated the English invasion. The Hiberno-Scandinavian mint at Dublin was active from the reign of Citric Silkenbeard until the English arrived. In late 12th century issues were low-quality bracelets, thin discs of silver that could only be struck on one side. There is slight evidence that one or two mints is in operation outside of Dublin in the 12th century, which would indicate a level of monetization of Gaelic society outside the major port towns. From 1180s, new Anglo-Irish coins were minted under Prince John, Lord of Ireland. The first issues of halfpennies and farthings promoted the expansion of trade in developing colonial economy. Coin production was centred on Dublin, with mints operating intermittently in Kilkenny, Waterford, Cork and Limerick. The Lord of Ulster, John de Courcy, briefly issued coinage at Downpatrick and Carrickfergus. After Prince John became John, King of England in 1199, pennies were minted to the full English standard, which enabled them to circulate outside of Ireland. The island's resources were drawn upon extensively in the 13th century. Unofficial tokens also circulated. Example, more than 2,000 pewter tokens were recovered from the 13th century pit. Coin production increased further during the reign of Edward I, but declined during the economic depression of the 14th century. Unlawful and foreign coinage, including English and Scottish forgeries, circulated widely in the late 15th century, which prompted the Anglo-Irish Parliament to request the production of Irish coins. These were issued with a lower silver component than their English counterparts to serve the internal economy rather than being used for foreign trade. Coins were used more in towns, but a mixed economy operated through all sections of Irish society. Alternatives to coin transactions included barter, swapping goods or services, and the use of commodity monies, length of cloth, cows, metal, or other items as units of payment. By 1100, overseas trade was flourishing in Ireland. Much of this was channeled through the Hiberno-Scandinavian towns of the south and east coast. Evidence of overseas trading links is also witnessed at large monastic centres and Gaelic royal sites. The growing economy of the 11th century is reflected in the frustrated interest of Jewish entrepreneurs to invest in Ireland. In 1079, the Annals of Inishfallen reported that, quote, 5 Jews came from overseas with gifts for Tordelbach, king of Munster, but, quote, they were sent back again overseas. And those guys, they're in for a rough time. In the 12th century, Ireland's main trading partners were England, Normandy, and southern France, as witnessed by numismatic and archaeological evidence. Bristol had risen to become Dublin's main trading partner, and as a result, Diarmait MacMurchada came to know Bristol merchants, particularly Robert Fitzharding, who acted as an intermediary in his negotiations with Henry II. And that's the first time we see the name. Now, I'm probably not pronouncing it the best. Diarmait MacMurchada. Marchada, probably. That is the individual who I believe was King of Mead, kind of provincial King of Mead, and was eventually driven out. How? How what exactly? Was eventually driven out, and I think by other people in his family and a few supporting lords from his seat of kingship, and he flees to England and gains support for him to be sat back upon the throne in his area. But really, it was just a way for the English to get a foothold in Ireland. One of Henry II's first concerns on invading Ireland was to secure control of the principal ports. He issued a charter in 1171-72, placing the port of Dublin in the care of the loyal men of Bristol, who were given the right to dwell there. Naturally enough, Ireland's principal trading partner continued to be England through the later Middle Ages. Dublin and the south and west coasts traded mainly with Bristol, while Chester continued to be a significant trading partner, not only with Dublin, but also Drogheda, and the more northerly of ports. Some Irish trade went to Wales, the southwestern counties, and southeast of England. The principal Irish exports were of basic commodities, especially grain, oats and wheat, fish, hides, wool, linen and timber. Oak exported from southeast Ireland in the early 13th century has been traced archaeologically at sites in Salisbury, Exeter and Shetland. These may attest to large-scale woodland exploitation by English colonists in Leinster. In the early years of the 13th century, grain was one of the main Irish exports. From the 1240s until 1324, a major market for grain was English royal armies. The use of Irish resources radically increased under Edward I due to his ambitious foreign policy. In 1297 alone, well in excess of 11,600 quarters of wheat and 1,850 quarters of oats were shipped to the army in Gascony. The profit to the Irish economy was limited due to fixed prices, delayed payments and corruption. The overexploitation of grain resources by the English crown exacerbated the decline in agricultural productivity in Ireland during the 14th century. Grain production was also disrupted during the 14th century by increasing warfare against the Gaelic Irish and by the Black Death. As a result, Ireland ceased to export large quantities of grain. By 1437, Bristol was shipping grain to Ireland, and in 1475 there was a ban on the export of Irish corn. The decline in grain exports was partly compensated by burgeoning export trade in fish and hides. In the late 15th century, fish worth from £1,001 to £2,843 a year made up on average 80% of Bristol's Irish imports by value. Herring was the most important, followed by hake and salmon. Oh, I had some salmon tonight. Salmon, rice, and some veg like carrots, peas, and broccoli. Ooh, that salmon is lovely, man. It's one of the nicest fish. Oh my god. The main centre of fish trade in Ireland was Waterford, a large port opposite Bristol, with a wealth of herring off its coast. Yet boats from many other ports from Wexford to Dingle, County Kerry, were prominent in the trade. Estuarine fisheries provided the highly prized salmon of Ireland. During the 15th and 16th centuries, French and Spanish fishing ships operated off the Irish coast, which brought some profit to Gaelic and Anglo-Irish ports where they landed for supplies. That's something that still happens to this day, because the European fishing boats basically just fish in Irish seas all the time, and our government is too scared to do anything about it. Not that they could do anything about it. We have about 3 ships in our entire navy, and the ships are mainly just 2 boats, 2 police boats. It's a joke. We need to. It does annoy me. We rely too much on the English and the Americans for our own protection. How many people live in Ireland? Ireland has a population of about, as a total island, and hello, welcome in, Doodling Poodle. That is the most adorable name, Doodling Poodle. I love it. Ireland as an island, I think, is around 5.5 million. Actually, no, it's probably around 5.5 million at this point. The Republic. Let me double check, because I think actually we recently hit a new level. Ireland population. Total island. Worldometer is saying that Ireland has a population of about 5.2 million. Okay, I thought it was up around 5.5 million at this point, but maybe I was wrong. Brits can't even build a railroad anymore. I would just be down for and that's including all of Ireland. All of Ireland. That's tiny. Yeah. Why, thank you. Well, welcome in, Poodle. I like the name. I like the idea of a doodling poodle. It's cute. But yeah, no, Ireland has a very small population. Which kind of makes it even more insane how, I wouldn't say influential, but we kind of just pop up in places on the world stage. Do you remember? No, that's kind of a controversial topic. I won't say. I've been meaning to catch one of your lives. Oh, thank you so much, Doodling. No, I'm gonna call you Poodle. I'm gonna call you Doodle. No, wait, hang on. That's just a normal word. But Doodle. I like Doodle. Oh my god, it reminds me of the character Dougal from Father Ted. He was a very not the most quick-witted man, so to speak. Probably the best way to put it. If you guys have never watched Father Ted, I'd recommend it, but it's very Irish in its humor. There is parts that anyone could laugh at, but it's definitely Irish. I feel like it's an Irish type of humor and would at times struggle to translate. But yeah, to it, a large portion of that, Ireland used to have, what was our population right before? Irish population before famine, before kind of everything went to shit. Yeah, so in the 19th century, around 1840s, Ireland had a population of about 8.5 million. And, I mean, obviously this is before the massive population boom of the modern world. But that's when the plague, or not the plague, sorry, that is when, oh, thank you, Clever. Thank you so much for the gift sub. Thank you for giving it to Doodle. That's when the Ungorta Mór, the Great Famine, the Great Hunger occurs with the potato crop. Basically something called blight hits the potato crop multiple years in a row and leads to massive deaths. I think about 1 million people die over 1 million people die, millions more emigrate. The population of Ireland has yet to even recover to that pre-famine numbers. That's the insane part. It has been over or nearly 200 years, and we are not even close to matching that level. You never knew it was that drastic. Oh yeah. It was a lot of people died. A lot of people died. Which I apologize if you're trying to relax to a nice cozy ASMR stream, but Irish famine. Yeah, about 1 million deaths, and how many people? A further 1 million people emigrated, and of course that was in the immediate aftermath of the famine. More people would emigrate as time goes on. To be down like 3 million from the 1800s is wild. Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, it would eventually go down even further, obviously, because we're only at 5.5 million. It would fall continuously as people would continue to leave. Economic development just was not a thing. And then of course you had America coming along, where, you know, Irish immigrants, I think it's like a lot of Irish immigrants were of Ulster Scot, or Irish Scot, I guess you could call it. Ruadh needs to go hit up the girls and propose to them and justify the need of population growth for the country. I'm not against that idea. I mean, I am down for repopulating Ireland. Absolutely. I mean, we do gotta bump up those population numbers. I just need to find a couple more redheads. Your real name is Gaelic? Oh, Irish American is like the majority of your overall area. Yo, based Alpin is Irish? Let's fucking go. I fucking knew that Alpin was even more based than he could possibly be. I wonder, I obviously probably recognize the name, but I wonder would I know any of your, like, if you know any of your local relatives over in Ireland, because Ireland is a very small place. Oftentimes one of the first things Irish people do when they get chatting is they'll talk about the area they're from, who they know, and almost all the time you're going to find someone who knows each other. Either, and obviously it's the whole 7 degrees of separation thing, but it's a lot closer than even in Ireland. Typically 2 degrees of separation is the farthest you'll get. Oh, thank you. Clever, thank you so much for the gift sub to Alvin as well. You're getting 20 gift subs in total. My god, thank you, Clever. I've been thinking, actually, I want to do some stuff for my live 2D. I want to do the whole like PowerPoint stuff because that seems really fun. My live 2D debut. And then I want to get maybe sub badges. What do you guys think would be some good sub badges? I'm trying to think. Something obviously Irish themed. Maybe some sort of Irish symbols, like Gaelic script, or like the Irish art. A lot of us are just a mix of 20 different things. Yeah, you guys are all a bunch of mutts. You guys are a bunch of mutts over there. You're more German than anything, with a significant Irish portion. Oh yeah, like I think it's like, isn't it like 30,000 or something Irish people, Irish ancestry over there? Of course, again, a significant portion of that is Ulster Scot, or Irish Scot, I think they call themselves. Hello Haru, how rue you? You're 2/3 English and 1/3 Scottish. Drown. I died. Thank you for the will you don't ask Harry that. No, Clever. No, you can't ask someone that. Ignore Clever for 1 trillion. What? This is oddly entertaining. Yeah, me being terrified for what is that? 100,000 trillion USD. Chad move, the hero miracle would. One, you know what? I'm gonna be honest, Haru. I don't think Ireland would be able to afford that. We're already in debt as it is. 100,000 trillion seems a little bit out of our depth. Total value of the economy of Earth. What's yeah, considering the fact that in 2022 the IMF said that they expect the GDP to be around 104 trillion. In nominal terms, I feel like, I just looked it up, I feel like I probably can't afford 100,000 trillion. But that does seem like a fair value to put to repopulating Ireland. You could get... I know exactly who Clever is talking about. I know that art of Toedes. If you guys like some let's say risque art, Toede is definitely someone you should check out. I've actually been meaning not getting risque art, lewd art. That's for 100 subs. No wait. Was that how much I said? I think it was 50 actually. 50 total. 50 concurrent subscribers was the lewd art. Don't check it. Check your art out. He's a degenerate. Toede is a degenerate. He's a degenerate goblin. But he's a very, very good artist. He draws very cute goblins with very long ears. This is funny to you because you're one whole ocean away. Oh, are you American maybe? Ayo, yeah. I mean that's a sub goal. That's a secret sub, not secret, but like a sub goal that's happening in the background. It's you don't need to say anything about yourself. By the way, Doodle, Elvenized Gobbo. Hello, Crespi, and welcome in. But yeah, 50 concurrent subs will get a lewd art. I think it's like 40 for a unsay so ASMR. Not exactly American, but close enough. I'm just gonna say something about Canada. Did you guys know that the Gaelic, the Irish Republicans invaded Canada? Hydration check. All my hydro homies know the drill. Better be drinking H2O. You need to drink before you feel thirsty, and also don't forget to blink. I'm blinking. You guys, when I reveal my live 2D, you guys are gonna get to see me blink. And if you post that, I'm gonna blink rapidly. I just need to, my papa, my rigger, has to just teach me. You approve of that invasion? I do have a one art skip to get though, because we did reach 10 concurrent subscribers because Daya just like went crazy, which was pretty cool. So a low skeb range, I think around €30 is probably what I'll go for. And actually, what I'm thinking for, if we hit the mid range, which I was thinking around maybe €40 or something, 50. I might just go for Toede. I've been meaning, I want to commission Toede for something, but I don't know what to do. So Toede, I am still thinking about commissioning you. Don't worry. I know I said it ages ago, but it is in my mind. I just need to have an idea and a justification for it. Girl, when is your 2D live? You're bombing that fan art challenge. That's a horrible mistake. No, I think that's a pretty good idea. I think you would draw me very, very nicely. I'm not gonna set any hard date, but I'm thinking maybe the weekend of the 28th of September. That's when I'm thinking of doing it. So in 2 weeks' time, Halloween is close. Oh, guys, what do I dress up as Halloween? For Christmas, I should be Ruadh. No, Ruadh. No, 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 no. Rudolph, Rudolph, Rudolph. We are Rudolph, Rudolph. We're not that. We're not that. that could be a funny Halloween one, but I don't think Twitch would be very happy. I'd be like Father Ted. Hang on. You guys would join stream. You join stream and it would just be me. Hang on. It would just be me like not even show. No, this is from Father Ted. This is a jokey video. A joke image. It would just be me, but they're in the scene. There's a black spot on the window that's pointed out at the beginning of the episode. I'm gonna watch some Father Ted on stream sometime. That would be a terrible idea. A bunny sounds quite cute. A bunny sounds quite cute. I already have a cat boy. A cat boy version. Wait a minute. Why am I giving you guys that for free? That's like 5,000 channel points. Why am I giving that to you guys for free? What the? I'm gonna stop that right now. You lost your brain cell? Yeah, I kind of lost it there for a second when I realized what happens when I try and add on the A to Rudolph. Your Rudolph was one bad day from becoming a very bad reindeer. But yeah, that would be a cute little Christmas outfit, I think, like with some antlers and a big red nose. For Halloween, maybe a bunny, maybe a banani, That would be cute. That could be the skeb. maybe that's the little community skeb I get. How would you guys think about a banani skeb? I want big floppy ears that you could like lift up and like leave go, and they would like flap against my face. It'd be like that, and it's cute and soft. Crespian, why are you staring at fire? That looks like the Fire Lord symbol. Can I be Fire Lord Sozin? Yeah, I want to be Fire Lord Sozin. Hell yeah. But this is meant to be a reading stream. Kind of like Cinema Roll's ears. Yeah. But he's a dog. Yeah, I want big ears. Big ears. They're the best kind of ears. Can Toede be Korra? Sure, Toede, you can be Korra. You can be the hot tanned woman. Well, no, she's just Inuit, isn't she? I think that's what they're based on, isn't it? Inuit. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yes, you can be the muscular woman. Do I have any? I probably have some art of bunny ears that I'm thinking of. There's Kaida. Where's the bunny ears? Come on, surely I have some bunny art of... Maybe it's in my Val's channel. Val's folder. Bunnies, Easter. If I search Easter. No. Bun. I'm so sad. I don't have... It's all on my phone. That's the thing. All of my like fan art is saved from Twitter on my phone. I need to upload it to some drives. Maybe if I type in Easter into a search. No. Damn it. I have so many of them saved though. I love bunny fan art. I love Easter because that's when everyone gets bunny fan art. But okay, sorry, I got sidetracked, excuse me. I got distracted by bunnies. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe in 2 weeks' time. 2 weeks' time for the live 2D debut. Because I think I should have like just a free gaff and I can be nice and loud. Bunnies are cute, to be fair, very fair. 2 weeks, yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling. I'm not going to be doing one of those. I've posted my silhouette. I'm not going to be doing one of those, retweet, number of retweets and hearts and likes, and I'll reveal parts of the model. I want the model reveal to happen on the stream. 2 weeks time is International Rabbit Day. Wow, that's even more perfect. That's more perfect. I'm not gonna be a bunny though. I'm sorry to say. Retweet to see feet pics. No, no. See, one of the things that I already know is going to happen. I don't have socks on my model. I'm wearing like basically these, but they're more open. Hang on, let me move myself. I'm wearing these, but they're more open, and I know what's gonna happen. I'm going to. Hang on, wait. I moved you guys. Let me put you guys back. I'm going to do this. I'm going to start my reveal. And like once I get to here, everyone's gonna freak out, and I'm gonna have to stop for about 10 minutes while I chastise you guys, while I argue about you guys being weird, and like I'm gonna hide. I'm gonna go hide. What if I just went like this and I just ruined the entire reveal? I just ruin it entirely. But I have to say, it is really good. The model is. I was messing around with it so much in the past couple of days, just admiring it and messing around with the facial expressions. My mama and my papa, they really did a wonderful job, and I can't wait to show it to you guys. I'm trying to think of what other things to do. I'm gonna be honest, it's a very pretty model. I think like I was smitten by it. So I think you guys could be too. But I'm thinking maybe some sub badges. I'm gonna do a little PowerPoint thing. We'll see how fancy I make the PowerPoint. Do I even have PowerPoint on this on my PC? I don't know. Maybe I'll have to I'll illegally download Office 365. But yeah, I'm gonna go watch a couple of like debuts and like just steal some stuff from them. But I am really looking forward to it. It'll be a lot of fun. But okay, I'm gonna get back to the reading because we've been talking for quite a while, and I just want to. I'd say there's another half an hour of reading in here, to be honest. So I'm gonna get going. But that was a fun little break. I do actually really enjoy like the breaks when chatting. Drown before you read, boss. I was one step ahead of you, Haru, but thank you for always looking out for my throat. It's very important it stays hydrated, especially when reading. We're going to get back into all about commerce and communication. How exciting. Animal products were another major export. Regular shipments of hides were sent to Bristol, Normandy, Calais, Flanders, Brittany, Bordeaux, and Lisbon from the early 13th century. Italy was one of the biggest markets, and leather industries of Pisa alone took 34,000 hides in 1/2 year. Wool and wool fells were exported in large quantities to England, France, Flanders, and farther afield. Italian merchants were in charge of the customs on wool from 1275 until 1311, and they provided banking services to Anglo-Irish magnates. Wool for export was secured in repayment of debts, and the merchants employed policy of forward buying from Cistercians. Such foreign interest declined in the 14th century. Edward III's wool taxes in the 14th century also hit the Irish harder than the English, because Irish wool tended to be of lower quality. And I think a part of that was because the English being closer to and having just more people, more activity, especially closer to Europe in general, meant that they were able to get more and better breeds, like the high quality breeds of sheep, while that didn't really come to Ireland. From the late 13th century, it became more profitable to produce cheap woolen cloth rather than export wool. Cloth became an important part of Ireland's export trade by the end of the 15th century. A shift in the cloth trade from towns and guilds to cottage weavers doing piecework for merchants brought greater wealth to rural areas, both Gaelic and Anglo-Irish in the 15th century. Large amounts of linen, often made in Gaelic areas, were exported in the 15th century. In 1477 to 78, 20,000 yards of linen worth £100 were sent to Bristol, representing a peak in linen exports, which declined thereafter. Throughout the Middle Ages, one of Ireland's largest imports was wine. During the 12th century, most of the wine shipped to Ireland came directly from La Rochelle and Rouen, but some also came via England. In 1275, Edward I granted a charter of privileges to Gascon merchants, which made the wines of southwestern France a principal import to the English colony. In the 14th century, wines from Spain and Portugal were shipped along Ireland's west coast, and aided the rise of the port of Galway. Other commodities needed in Ireland included salt, which was essential for preservation of meat and fish, and was also used in tanning. It was principally obtained through Chester, which had a ready access to the brine pans of the Cheshire Plain. Metals were also imported, of which iron came in the biggest quantities, either through Bristol or from the continent. In addition to these bulk commodities, Ireland imported a variety of manufactured goods and luxuries. Fine cloths were imported principally from England. From the 14th century, Anglo-Irish and Gaelic elite followed the contemporary fashions, including the doublet. In the early 15th century, fine cloth from Bristol's chief export to Ireland was Bristol's chief export. Other wares that came to Ireland included Mediterranean spices, dried fruits, drugs, and perfumes, which were either imported directly or came via England. One of the challenges facing overseas trade in Ireland was the attacks made on towns and traders by the king's enemies and by pirates. Depredations by Anglo-Irish and Gaelic rebels are recorded in complaints to the English king made by the principal ports of Ireland during the 14th and 15th centuries. Foreign rivals also brought trouble, as witnessed in the petition of Drogheda and Waterford in 1442 for help in repairing fortifications damaged by Scots, Bretons, and Spaniards. English pirates also frequented the Irish seaways. These days it's the English who go to Spain and other places and cause a bunch of havoc during their with their football hooliganism. Drugs? I guess so. I don't know what drugs would be around this time period, but I'm sure they had some stuff. People were definitely getting fucked up on some weird things. Thank you for the hydrate. English pirates also frequented the Irish seaways. The records of the Court of Admiralty suggest that in a number of cases local lords and port authorities were complicit in the profits of their trade, so that the presence of pirates was not always a drain to the Irish economy. In general, Irish overseas trade from its southern and eastern coasts flourished in the 13th century, but declined during the 14th century, even before the Black Death devastated the population. English purveyance, taxes, and foreign policy, for example the 100 Years' War, had a negative impact. Irish exports were also hit by the mid-14th century demographic catastrophe. Despite these setbacks, the Irish economy adapted. In the 14th and 15th century, political and economic changes promoted a shift in wealth towards the western regions of Ireland. This was reflected in the growth of western ports, including Galway and Sligo. Wealth that accrued through overseas trade in the Middle Ages supported the construction of towns, walls, churches, and stone merchant houses, which still grace a number of Ireland's towns. Tax, tributes, and renders. I will say this chapter is very heavy in terms of economy, industry, trade, construction, agriculture. It does get, some of the more interesting stuff is kind of, I think, in the chapter after. Let me just check this page, I think. Yes, here we are. The kind of table of contents. We get into society next chapter, and then politics, which will no doubt be a highly debated thing, and I'll probably be stopping every 5 minutes of reading, being like, oh, fucking bastards. Talking about the English invasion. Tax, tributes, and renders. The sources for Gaelic and English governmental exactions differ in their character and detail. English records provide comparatively good data concerning tax, tributes, and render. This has led to a much greater emphasis in scholarship on the revenues of the English crown in Ireland for the Middle Ages. However, since the 1970s, there has been more research on lordship in Gaelic society and greater study on its social and economic underpinnings. It highlights similarities as well as differences in sources of seigneurial revenue between the Gaels and Anglo-Irish during the later Middle Ages. The economic concerns of lords are well evidenced during the reign of Muircheartaigh Uabrian. I said I was going to do this when an odd name would pop up. So we had this one earlier. Is it showing? Oh no, it didn't. It disappeared on you. This one. The last name isn't too bad, but imagine you're trying to read a book and you're trying to read it nice and fluidly so that you guys can follow along. And you just get hit with this. Muircheartaigh Uabrian. Difficult stuff. Which means the politics section is going to be a head wreck. Muircheartaigh Uabrian, Over-King of Munster, he was the most powerful man in Ireland at the turn of the 12th century. In 1101, Muircheartaigh undertook a circuit of all of Ireland. It was around this time that the bulk of Leabhar na Ceart, Book of Rights, was composed, which laid down the rights of the kings of Munster as Over-King of Ireland within each province, and the entitlement of lesser kings. In this text, authority was defined by a system of stipends and granted by a lord to his client in return for tribute and tax. The system was presented as if sanctioned by antiquity and ordained by Breneen, a disciple of St. Patrick. Although Leabhar na Ceart developed its format from pre-existing texts on clientship, the reference to Turalsta, stipends paid from an overking to an underking, reflects political developments in the 11th century. Innovation was therefore cloaked in tradition in this text. Leabhar na Ceart provides a snapshot of a perceived relationship between the Over-King of Ireland and the provincial rulers, and between provincial rulers and their sub-kings, presented from a Munster perspective. How did I lose that line? Presented from a Munster perspective. Apart from the contextual biases of the text, its underlying principles reveal mechanisms of power in pre-Norman Ireland, elements of which continued for the rest of the Middle Ages. According to Leabhar na Ceart, the stipends granted by overkings to lesser kings comprised high-status gifts including horses, slaves, fine clothes, horns, military equipment, ships, and bracelets. In return, most of the kings who receive a stipend provide food, tribute, and military service to their overlords as well as hostages. The tribute and services are rendered annually or triennially and consist of livestock, cows, swine, oxen, sheep, and mantles. Certain groups were exempt from giving tribute either due to perceived kinship between their people or that of the overlord, or occasionally on account of an agreement. These groups might also be exempt from military service unless for pay. One tax that is mentioned in Leabhar na Ceart may have been introduced in Ireland based on Scandinavian models. It was a ship levy, or leigandr in Old Norse. This would give rise to the Irish term leiding, which also is found in older 12th century texts. In essence, the system of taxation and military service presented in Leabhar na Ceart does not differ substantially from other polities in Western Europe at that time. The Ruadh Gaedel Regalib, the War of the Gaels and the Foreigners. I need to look up how to pronounce this. This is quite an important work in Irish history. The Ruadh Gaedel Regalib, or Gaelib, is another text thought to have been written during the reign of Muircheartaigh. In detailing the oppression wrought by Vikings on Munster, it describes royal agents being appointed to high office in every territory and a soldier being sent to every house to obtain supplies. Furthermore, it claimed that a man from each household was obliged to provide military service in return for a stipend, and his family was required to maintain him. A poll tax of an ounce of Findrin electrum on each nose was also levied every year. In the portrayal of a nightmarish world of excessive taxation, we may get a glimpse, albeit an exaggerated one, of the systems of exaction that were in place in Munster during the time when Murchatoch Uabrian was king. References to a poll tax or nose tax are also found in hagiographic texts, where a king grants tributes to the successors of a saint. In the 11th or 12th century, Life of Saint Fincu of Brigaun, the king of Munster grants the first fruits of livestock, protection, and alms for every nose in Fermoy. In the late medieval Life of Saint Magnine of Kilmainham, a king assigns the alms of a screple on every nose for every chieftain's daughter that would take a husband, an ounce of gold, or, should his stewards choose it rather, such raiment as they should have had on them, or the gold which had tribute of the men from overseas, the king conferred on him, the making of a pastoral staff likewise, and of a crozier. Don't know what half of that meant, I'm going to be honest. While the nose tax may have come from the levying tax in coastal towns with links to Scandinavia, it seems to have been adopted by church and state in Ireland. A variety of texts indicate that substantial income churches drew from tithes, alms, gifts, and one-off payments for ecclesiastical services. This was in addition to the profits of landholdings, which were extensive in 12th century Ireland. The reform movement of the 12th and 13th centuries encouraged bequests of land to new and established monasteries, a matter that is discussed in more detail later. The English conquest brought a new landowning elite to Ireland. Notionally, land were held by greater lords as gift from the crown in exchange for military service or other dues. Greater lords in turn made a series of land grants to their followers for service and revenues. For Anglo-Irish lords, land would be a key source of revenue, with the profits and labour services of immense land being received directly, in addition to the rents received from rural and urban tenants. From time to time, the crown was able to regain landholdings through escheat, when a suitable heir to an estate was lacking, or forfeiture in punishment for disloyalty. Most Gaelic lords had lands attached to their office. However, this was not always the case, nor was a demesne always distinguished from lands inherited from the family. Gaelic lords could also extend their landholdings through the exercise of seigneurial rights in lieu of dues and exactions, or in pledge for a fine, or in the absence of rightful owners. Both Anglo-Irish and Gaelic lords might opt to farm their lands directly, or grant them to tenants in exchange for renders, labour obligations, and military dues. In addition to land and labour, tributes and taxes were collected. Gaelic lords received money, cattle, or foodstuffs from the territories under their control, in amounts that were often fixed according to the units of land assessment. Assessment established in the 11th century of Tríocha, Ket, and Baile. The majority of Anglo-Irish land divisions were also based on this pre-existing Gaelic system. The profits of justice from seigneurial and royal courts were of greater significance to English lords than in Gaelic areas, where an independent judiciary continued to practice its craft. However, a proportion of the legal fines paid to a victim's family might also be claimed by a Gaelic lord. The English crown claimed the rights of knight service, feudal aids, and wardship from the lands under its control. There was a tendency for knight service from military tenants and rents from communities to be converted over time into cash payments, as a tax levied in lieu of military service, and revenue farms. References to scutage, which is the tax in lieu of military service in Ireland, first appear in 1222 and became a regular part of crown revenue by the late 13th century. Scutage was abandoned in England in 1340, but continued in Ireland, albeit with a waning significance. Attempts to revive the importance of this military levy for the Irish exchequer in the 15th century provoked resistance, leading to its eventual abandonment in 1531. Urban taxation developed in the late Viking Age. A 12th century poem in the Book of Umain states that a tenth of the trading goods which arrive in Dublin were owed to Armagh, as well as a scruple of gold for each man, while the kings of the town claimed a tax upon the wares of craftsmen and merchants. The major urban centres of Ireland fell under English royal control from the late 12th century and were taxed by their new overlords. King John collected 1/15 of the value of imports on a few occasions after 1203, and Henry III followed suit from 1266. In 1275, a heavy tax of 6 shillings and 8 D, I don't know what D might mean, maybe pence, per sack of wool, per 300 wool fells and every 100 hides was introduced. The wool tax would be a main component of English custom duties from the rest of the Middle Ages. Foreign merchants also paid customs on cloth, wax, wine, and other merchandise. As Gaelic society became more urbanized in the 15th century, local lords claimed burgage rents and customs duties in the manner of their English neighbours. The English royal right to purveyance, the compulsory purchase of supplies for war, was exercised with increasing frequency in late 13th century Ireland. In principle, goods taken were meant to be paid for at market prices, but in reality, payments were in arrears, often fixed low or never forthcoming. Wealthier landlords could avoid this by purchasing exemption or by bribing officials. The burden of taxation therefore fell heavier on those with less political influence. Proportionate to its size and wealth, Ireland was burdened more heavily with purveyance than England during the ambitious military campaigns of Edward I. For example, in December 1298, the king requested from Ireland 8,000 quarters of wheat, 10,000 quarters of oats, 2,000 quarters of crushed malt, 1,000 tons of wine, 500 carcasses of beef, 1,000 fattened pigs, and 20,000 dried fish exports to support his military campaign in Scotland. The hardships imposed on merchants and landowners led to numerous complaints and incidences of resistance. Thank you, Crespian, for the stretch. And the hydrate. I can feel my throat getting a little bit dry. Direct taxation was levied in areas under the control of the English crown, initially as an occasional levy to fund war efforts. The yield from subsidies on land and movable goods varied. During the 13th century, direct taxation became increasingly frequent in a system that was open to abuse and corruption. In the closing years of the 13th century, the economy of Anglo-Irish areas was under exceptional pressure. Figures for the last years of the reign of Edward I show a decrease in revenues from £6,112 in 1301 to 2 to as little as £2,865 in the early years of Edward II's reign in 1211 to 12. As the English colony fell into financial crisis, the Irish Council took the decision in August 1311 that all revenue from customs should be paid into the Dublin Exchequer rather than be granted to revenue collectors for the Crown. Nevertheless, money and supplies continued to be sent from Ireland to support Edward II's war in Scotland. By the end of Edward's reign in 1327, the finances of the English administration in Ireland were so enervated that support was sought from England. What had been a profitable colony for English kings became an increasing drain on their finances in the 14th and 15th centuries. During the reign of Edward III, general subsidies were authorised by the Irish Parliament to maintain the government. For example, in 1346, the tax granted was 2 shillings of ploughhead, or per £6 worth of movable goods, and 1/10 on the spiritualities of the clergy. Over the course of the 14th century, the taxable area that was effectively governed by Parliament declined, and the yields from taxation were largely dispersed on local defensive and other needs. Excuse me, I hope you guys didn't hear that. Oh no. Economic depression led to a lowering of a number of tax assessments in 15th century, and by the early 1470s, subventions from England to bolster the Anglo-Irish government became a necessity. Provincial and country assemblies continued to grant sectional subsidies locally. This was based on the historical principle that a local community should be responsible for the costs of its own defence. Rights to levy taxes were granted to lords and burgesses for building and maintaining town walls, bridges, castles, and quays. The tributes, or black rents, paid by many Anglo-Irish communities to Gaelic lords as protection money in the later Middle Ages, were often raised by local subsidy assessments. The Irish system of local taxation was alien to England, and reflected both unsettled conditions in Ireland and the decentralised exercise of power. In the 15th century, Parliament sought to impose control over local taxation by mandating that its approval was necessary for any such exactions. Hospitality appears to have had an increasing economic significance in relation to taxes and tributes for Gaelic lords as the Middle Ages wore on. In return for land or stipend, a lord might demand hospitality and refection for himself, his servants, and retinues. The practice of free board and lodging was dubbed conmed, or corsir, excuse me, let me read that again, was dubbed coinmed or coesir, and anglicized as coin or koshering. Although it was also practiced under a variety of other names, it was an effective method of fiscal exploitation utilized by both secular lords and bishops. It relieved lords of household expenses and provided for their retinues and troops, as well as reinforcing the bonds between lord and subject. These perceived merits led to the practice being widely adopted in Anglo-Irish areas by the 15th century. You guys would do that for me, right? You guys would, if I came a knocking in your guys' places, you guys would put me up for the night, free lodgings, and maybe some food. You guys would do that. You guys would totally do that. I know you would. Although the seigneurial exactions of Gaelic and English lords and kings in Ireland are often analysed separately, there were in fact numerous similarities between them. Toward the end of the Middle Ages, practices of gathering revenue were increasingly shared by the Anglo-Irish and Gaelic elites. Economic strength had political ramifications. The revenue of the English colony showed a healthy return in the 13th century, but decreased through economic decline, over-exploitation, corruption, and spiralling defence costs. The dwindling profit to the English royal government was a contributory factor in a policy of retrenchment adopted towards the end of the Middle Ages, and the resultant making of the Pale. This left much of Ireland in the hands of Gaelic and Anglo-Irish lords who operated with a high level of independence from the English crown. You can sleep in the coach. Food you can do, said Poodle, or Doodle, but you're sleeping on the floor. Only if Clever gets a favour. I can do with a floor. As long as I get like a cozy, give me a cozy blanket. Or like a sleeping bag, and I can sleep on the floor, no bother. And a pillow, please. In the coach. What's the coach like? All I can think of is like a coach, like something that's pulled by horses. Oh, we're almost done. Literally the last page. Conclusion. The economic history of Ireland from 1100 AD to 1500 AD is characterized by economic growth in the 12th and 13th centuries. This was followed by a decline in the 14th century as a consequence of famines, epidemic, and warfare. There was a shift in farming practices from intensive arable production to the more traditional and sustainable practices of dairy and cattle rearing from the 14th century. In the 15th century, signs of economic recovery are more apparent in Gaelic-held areas that were less severely affected by the catastrophes of the preceding century. Meanwhile, the economic problems of the English colony were exacerbated by territorial shrinkage and political infighting. And that ends that chapter, and would lead us into chapter 8, society. We live in a society, as some people would say. But I think I'm going to leave that for the next stream. How long have I been streaming? About 2 hours. Oh, a little bit over 2 hours. That's good. You can give me a blanket and a pillow. You think they meant the couch? Oh yes, that makes sense. That makes sense. I can sleep on the couch too. That's fine. I'll stretch out and be happy. I hope I don't get in there and then it's like a one-seat couch. Although I remember when I was a young boy, and like you would have a one-seat couch, but it was like more than enough for you to sleep on. It was like so cozy to get like nice and cozy into a one-seater. Bottom text. Indubitably. Indubitably we will get into society. Your couch turns into a bed. Ooh. Nice. I like that. I like that makes a lot more sense for sleeping on the couch then. Although I wouldn't mind, like if I was visiting someplace and someone was putting me up and they were like, "I'm sorry, the only place I have is like the couch," I would be like, "That's fine. That's totally fine. Thank you for even like putting me up." Because doing that is one of the best ways to save a lot of money. And of course, you know, if you are doing that with a friend, you know, you get them something nice. Maybe you leave a little bit of money or something for them to find, or like like on the table as you leave, or like under a glass or something, or you buy them a gift or something, whatever. I don't know, you do something nice before you leave. But yeah, that was an interesting chapter in terms of we saw little bits of mention of obviously the English invasion. A lot of attention was focused on that, and I can only imagine that a lot of the next chapter is going to be focusing on the differences between Gaelic society and Anglo-Irish society, or rather, the initial Norman English invaders, and then also the resultant Anglo-Irish identity forming. I think it is interesting to keep in mind that it was only around what is it, the 1150s, I think. Excuse me. It was only around then that it was only like 100 years ago, 1066, that England was taken over by the Normans themselves. So much of this was being spearheaded by the Normans. The Irish had a lot of relationships with the English, the original Britons, so to speak, and oftentimes we actually kept, and Gaelic lords would mind and shelter English nobles from that group of people who were eventually overthrown by the Normans. Mr. Ua, you seem brighter today. Do I? I feel like I'm technically darker because I'm pretty sure I have a filter that makes me kind of a little bit darker. Little Rua over there is near the fire, so he's nice and bright. I love having little Rua over there. Cute little cat Rua. Cat-eared Rua. Cozy. I need more emote slots. I have more emotes ready to go, but I just need them. I need them. But hi D, how you doing? I hope you're having a nice oh, it's Saturday now for you. I hope you had a good Friday and a good start to your weekend. But I need them. I need more. I literally will die if I don't get more emote slots. Okay, that's a little bit much. That's not true at all in the slightest. That's completely false. Absolutely fake. I am lying to you. But I would like them. I would like them. Because having more emote slots means that people can use things. You forgot tomorrow is Saturday. You work. Oh no, Doodle. That sucks. Give him more. I stab him. Don't threaten people to buy subscriptions. Clever, bold, clever. If I had a bonk emote, I would totally like bonk clever right now. But I don't have a bonk emote because I don't have the slots. Riggy. But that sucks, Doodle. I know a few people who work on Saturdays. I know a few DJs who who work late into Saturday nights and Sunday nights. It just seems like a rough thing to have to do. Although I did learn that excuse me, in the coming week or two, I'm going to be working a lot of hours for the end of this kind of busy moment in my job. So I'll be busy with that for a while. I'm going to be keeping. I just remembered that I have. You get paid. It's fine. Yeah. It's like as long as I get my dues, it's fine. I'm gonna be keeping the happy birthday version of the chat for a little bit. Oh, thank you, D. You missed my birthday. It's okay, D. It's okay. It's okay. I don't mind at all. You it's Australia or not? Yeah, it's Australia. You were probably eepy. You were probably very very eepy. So it's okay. I hope you did enjoy seeing the silhouette though. You were as deep in Eep. That's the perfect way to be. I'm gonna be deep and eat pretty soon. Pretty soon. You work in fast food, so you'll be entertained. Make sure your chair catching abilities are on point. You have to regularly be ready to go in fast food. I feel, depending on the area, of course, but you gotta be ready to defend yourself. You sent a creepy marshmallow, but I don't think it went through. You sent a creepy marshmallow? Hang on a moment. Hang on. I didn't see it. I know they delete some of them, and I wish I knew how to stop it. You sent 2. No, I see 1 that I got during the stream when you were asleep. I don't think this one is yours. I have. There's 2. Happy birthday. I hope you have a good birthday. What dessert would you be and why? Then there's one. One was normal. I don't know. Maybe that is you. Maybe that is you. Was very obvious it was you. Oh, the dessert one was a normal one. I see. And there is a creepy one. Ew. Oh my god, D, I can't believe you would say that. Oh my god. My god. Revealing all. I'm lying. I have no idea which one it could have been that you sent. But if you guys do want to send me marshmallows, it's all in Japanese. How do I make sure I send the correct link? How do I... Which one is it? It's all in Japanese. Japanese bros, please help me. Hang on, I can just go onto Twitter and scroll down and find the marshmallow link that I had. If someone else has it, please send it to me. Oh, there it is. There we go. So if you guys wanna send me weird things, you can do so. You went on a 1,000 character limit fan fiction. You're sad it's gone. No, that's the saddest thing. I'm gonna go into my settings and make sure that people can send anything, can send like anything to make sure that I pick up funny little things. Doodle's getting eepy. I love that emote. My good friend Olga Okami. Olga Okami did this. Olga's actually going through a very rough time right now. She something to do with traveling back home to Russia to go visit her family, which obviously is kind of in a little bit of a tricky situation. She lives in America. UPS or whoever it was, I think it was UPS, lost her passport and her tickets, and she is down about €5,000, or roughly around that. I think 3,000 last I heard, and possibly another 2. So if you guys do have anything to spare, and I'm not trying to shill, if you guys do have anything to share, or you want to support my friend, I'm just going to pop this in there. If you guys buy the freedom seeds, they're set up to be done through payout, which means she can get out the money and take it out herself and use it. So if you do want to help out in any way, if you feel like throwing any money away at the moment, do towards Olga, because I think she probably needs it. It's a lot of her savings was gone, and I've been thinking about it for a while. I'm trying to even imagine what that must be like to go through. It seems horrible, so I'll just send that. I'll just put that little link in there for her. What happened to her? The UPS, which is like a mailing service in America, lost her passport and like very expensive tickets to Russia. I think because of what's going on, I think she had to send it to the embassy, the Russian embassy, to get it all approved and stuff. And they lost it. It was gone. And there's a pretty good chance that it was probably taken to be used for possibly identity theft or something. Like, that's something that she's very concerned about as well. But it's a horrible situation for her. UPS basically only insure things up to $100, and I think she paid for some sort of express delivery thing, and that got lost. My hope is that it gets found. No, I think this was UPS that messed up, Clever. From what I hear, anyway, this was the issue. But who knows? Maybe it did get delivered. But I don't think so. I think they contacted her and said that it was lost. But who knows what's going on there? You know, I'm sure there are some weird things. But I feel horrible for Olga. And Olga is one of my favorite kind of indie VTubers. She's incredibly cozy and incredibly comfy to just sit back and watch. I highly recommend her. And she has a 3D model. I don't exactly know what it is, but it's like, I can't remember what it's called, but she has so many redeems and crazy stuff that you're able to do. One of my favorite redeems, or commands, sorry, that she has is you're able to type in !OnlyFans, and it will rickroll you with her model dancing around the screen. It's incredible. But yeah, sorry, I'll move on from that. I just thought, it just came to me there that if you guys do have anything to spare, put it towards Olga, you know, $5, $10, I'm sure go a bit of a way for helping her. But with that shilling of my friend over, I will keep an eye out on Marshmallow to see if anything new comes in, especially anything from D. I'm gonna be keeping my eye peeled for that 1,000 character fan fiction. I want all of the. I want to see it on AO3. I want to see 1,000 kudos on it, and I want to see all those comments, and I want to see all the shipping tags of like everyone in that 1,000 character limit with like 5 different ships. You will never find your AO3. I'm gonna find your AO3D. I'm gonna see what things you have bookmarked. I'm gonna see what your tastes are. Oh no, you guys will never find my AO3 or my fanfiction.net. I'm gonna be honest, you guys probably could. Not your bookmarks. I'm gonna find them. I'm gonna find them and I'm gonna read them, and then I'm gonna judge you. I'm gonna send you snips of like weird parts from those stories, and I'm gonna be like, you read this? You like this stuff? Oh yes. Let me take a quick sip. Man, I hope I go in there and there's like 500 written stories by UD, all about like your favorite characters. It's just like people who, you know, sometimes you can really tell who an artist's favorite character is. Like Renata, one of my, an artist that I know that I've commissioned some nice stuff from before. She loves this. I can't remember what his name is, but he's a quite the attractive old man, I think, for her, and she loves him and regularly posts excruciatingly detailed descriptions of what she would do to him. She's a fun Fujo. She is a Fujo, a true Fujo. Because I've seen her complain about fake Fujos. It always makes me giggle. But you know what you read. Do you read the Kama Sutra? Oh man, I can't wait for my live 2D. Just thinking about like how you guys could see my face, like facial reactions, and how I could like look at you and be like, oh, you freaks, you weirdos, and judge you guys with my model's eyes. I can't wait. There's something else I can't wait to show you. I'm gonna try and like reveal certain expressions and things that I won't mention it. I won't say I'm doing it, but I'll just kind of do it. I kind of oh man, I wish I kind of did like a specific sus emote. That would have been funny. I unfortunately don't have that. Who knows? Maybe I can make my face kind of do that, and we can see what happens. I love that running sus emote, but I'll do it, and I'll just wait for you guys to react. But I think I may end it. Excuse me. I think I may end it there and send you guys off to to someone else. Who is doing some stuff? Who's live right now? Haru's live. I guess we're doing ASMR, so probably want to send you guys to. There's someone also doing ASMR. Who's on? Uo Lab is making explosive sodium metal for lab use using the novel menthol. What is this talking about? Do you guys want to raid into Uo's lab? Rather like fuck the ASMR. Do you guys want to see some explosive sodium? I assume he's going to explode it. As you wish. I think I've never raided into Uo. I'm a little bit nervous because he's pretty popular, but he's also a pretty cool guy. I've shouted to him before on dialogues. Time to drink with friends. Take care, Ruadh. See ya, Toede. See ya, Toede. Have a nice day. He's cool. Yeah, go for it. Yeah. I chatted with him before. I remember I was trying to convince him that he should copy Fenian raid. Why is Fenian? Oh no, I know why Fenian would be. Censored. But Fenian raid, let's go. Fenian raid. Some people have emotes, so we'll go Fenian raid. No wait, hang on. I want them on that side. Okay, for some reason my emotes are being dumb, but look, just go like Fenian raid or something. Just do something silly, but be cool. Because he's a pretty cool guy. I remember we were trying to convince him to replicate Diamandis's exploding television when Dia set a TV on fire somehow as a child. But I think what he was putting like pins into his fucking TV or something like an idiot. But anyway, I'm gonna send you guys over. He's creating explosive sodium, so don't die. Hide behind cover. Be safe. Not like him. No, he just talked about getting goggles, so he is safe. But Garev Mila Mahagut and Slong the Foil. And thank you all for coming. This was a really fun stream. I just heard him scream there was sodium. But anyway, I'm going to send you guys off. Talk to you guys later.